All right. Muhammad, I think is your name?
Uh, Mad.
Mod. Mod, how's it going?
It's going all right. How are you?
I'm all right, man. How old are you?
35.
35. Any religion?
Uh, I consider myself my own religion. It's kind of a conglomeration of many.
Okay, well, this is gonna be interesting. All right, man. Well, what you got for me?
Well, I mean, just based on your points there, I think there is a good reason to believe in a God because I think, regardless, honestly, if we're atheist or not, when we're alone and we have nothing in the world to really keep us safe or feel protected, we all have that inner voice. You can call it just your own conscience or whatever, but that is your connection to your God.
Okay, so you're saying actually give me 1 second. Can I see a request? Lion Lamb, I do see you. Stay in the box. I'm only bring up people one at a time. I'm talk to Mod first, and then I'll move on to you. All right. So Mod, you're saying that uh our inner voice, because the thing is, if you're just gonna say that our inner voice is, you would say that's God, that's indistinguishable from ourselves or our own self subconscious. So that's basically saying that we are gods ourselves. And if that's the case, that's basically equivalent to no God at all.
How is that equivalent to no God if we are God or a part of God?
Well, let me ask you this, because I have a certain idea when I say God. It may not be your idea. So when you say the word God, what is your definition? How do you view God as?
I would say God is the hmm, the creator and the creation. I would say God is the inhabitants of everything within the universe.
Okay, so that basically means that according to your definition, God is indistinguishable from things like rocks, because rocks are part of the universe.
Yes, the rocks are part of God. I believe.
All right. So if God is everything, then that basically means that God is rocks, God is this microphone, God's my ass. Like it basically means that God is everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so, if that's the case, that's what I've said. That's indistinguishable from no God at all. Because if I can't distinguish a God from my own inner voice, and I can't distinguish a God from this microphone, am I supposed to worship this microphone? This does nothing. This is a medium of communication between me and you. You know what I mean? That's basically no God at all at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, that microphone certainly does something. And I think there's more energy or more consciousness or awareness or function in different sources of God. I think trees are a massive part of God, just like human beings are. But even human beings are on different levels of frequency as far as how much God's spirit they are encompassing.
I have no idea what you're talking about, bro.
There's levels of well, I'll call it this Holy Spirit to simplify it. Some people have more of God's Holy Spirit within them, which allows them to do more things than others. But we all have a piece.
There's a problem here because you're kind of putting the cart before the horse. Don't you have to demonstrate or show or have evidence that there's a God that exists in the first place before you even say that we're all part of it?
Well, since we are a part of God, we are a part of the existence. And so we are, I mean, I believe there is a beginning. And yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I would say this. Like, yeah. I don't think anyone denies. Well, we can't really deny our existence. We exist. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't make if you're making existence equivalent to God,
Yeah.
again, that's the same thing as no God at all. Because if there wasn't, if existence wasn't around, then there wouldn't be a God because
Correct.
there's non-existence. You see what I'm
Correct.
saying? So that's what I'm saying. Like making existence, making things like existence or everything in the universe equivalent to a God. Like
Mm.
I understand what it is. It's basically Spinoza's God. It's basically pantheism. You know what I mean? Like the universe and everything in the universe is God itself.
Yes.
But like and that's fine, but I would say that, just like I said before, that's basically equivalent to no God, because I can't distinguish a God from, rocks, my microphone, and my the contacts in my eyes. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't it's not a very coherent definition. It has no functional utility to me.
I think it does, though, because that just explains that we are all connected and we are all a piece of what was once the singularity. You could consider that singularity the beginning of the Big Bang, God itself. And it's just a manifestation of energy and consciousness that's evolved throughout the years.
I mean, the thing is the way that you're using energy, because the way that science uses energy is just the capacity to do work, which is basically um the the capacity of a system to move things, essentially. You know what I mean? It's not some like ethereal force or that causes consciousness. Yeah,
I
you
think
see what I'm saying?
I think it is, though. I think energy is ethereal, and
Okay.
it's because energy isn't like mass, because mass
Mhm.
needs to have a weight and it needs to be something that you can observe. But energy is can be metaphysical, and it's the spirit of which is eternal.
Okay, and how do you show that to be true?
Um, well, you can feel it without seeing it. You can manifest it. You can actually also create it out of nothing.
Wait, we can create energy that flies in the face of relativity. Have you disproven relativity now?
Yeah, I think
You've
for
disproven relativity, bro. Really?
well
If
for
you're disproving relativity, you should go get your Nobel Prize like right now. You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
Because you should be talking to me on TikTok. You should be out revolutionizing the entire field of science if you really disprove relativity.
But think of this: if God, like other people's belief of God, can actually make logical sense, then relativity can't be real because something had to have manifested God out of something, out of or out of nothing, because there has to be a beginning, right?
No, things could always have been eternal. There could have been all
Yeah.
there. Like there was never a point where there was nothing. Like for example, let me ask you a question. Right? Can you point to nothing?
Can I point to nothing?
Mhm.
Um, I think you if you think that a void, like the void, like the night sky, is nothing, then sure. But I disagree that to be nothing. I think it's
Right?
something.
Exactly. Because the moment you point to nothing, it becomes something. So there's never a point where there was absolutely nothing. There were always things.
Okay.
Something always was. Whether that's space time, whether that's a singularity that had no
Dark energy.
beginning, which or dark energy or anything like that, there was always something. You see what I'm saying? Like time, time always was. Space always was. It's just there. You know what I mean? It's eternal. You feel what I'm saying? So like when we say that these things can't be made from nothing, I think we're talking more colloquially. Like, oh, you just pulled that out your ass out of thin air, you just thought of it. But it's
Uh-huh.
not really nothing. There are sequences of events, you know what I'm saying, or
Yeah.
there are chemicals in your mind that make you think of these things. 1 second. Thank you, y'all, for the 14K likes. Let's go ahead and still hit that goal, y'all. Still hit that goal. All right, but yeah, when we think about those things, like for example, when we talk about um the gods, right, or deities, how do people think of deities? Evolution actually shows that, because as humans, as a social species, as we evolved, we had to understand agency. And what agency means is that when I look at another human being, or when I look at an animal, I understand that that animal has its own thoughts and actions. I understand that another person have their own thoughts and actions. I understand that they do things, you feel me, consciously on their own. While humans were evolving, we had to develop that, because if we didn't, we got eaten by saber-toothed tigers. You see what I'm saying? If we couldn't tell the
Yeah.
difference between a rock and a saber-toothed tiger, we died. So we had to understand agency. We had to know about that. But what that causes in evolution is something called a type 2 error. A type 2 error means that you think everything has agency, meaning rocks, meaning the wind, meaning trees, everything has agency. And if you look at our ancient cultures, my bad, type 1 error, Sage is right, type 1 error. It's a type 1 error where where you think that everything has agency. You see what I'm saying? And if you look at, indigenous cultures, most of them are animist, meaning that they worship the stars, they worship the wind, they worship water, etc., etc. Our ancient cultures, as far as we know from hunters and gatherers or whatever, they did the same thing. Why? Because as humans, they recognize agency in everything. And if you look at how that's going to evolve over the course of years, like let's take the famous Greek pantheon. If you look at that, they're basically a personification of, the sky, the water, wind, things like that. Think about it. If we think that the ocean has agency,
Mhm.
it's going to make sense that somehow, some way, for thousands of years within a culture, they're going to come up with a Poseidon, or they're going to come up with a Mama Wata, like Africans came up with. You see what I'm saying? So, and even, yeah, that comes
Yeah.
to things like death. In in Haitian Vodou, the death gods are the Gede family, Papa Legba, Baron Samdi, their wives, etc., etc. Even death has agency. You see what I'm saying? So it didn't come out of nowhere. It came from our minds. It came from our brains. It came from thousands of years of evolution of type 1 errors of recognizing agency and everything. So it just didn't just come from nowhere. It just came up.
Yeah, I don't think it's an error. It came from experience, and these people gave credit to what they experienced and lived through. And sure, we evolved past it, and we are so disconnected now from nature and from these natural agencies in which brought us to this point of evolution that we tend to forget how important and how valid and how alive these agencies really are and how valuable they are. Just because they're not as evolved or as conscious as we are, or in the way that we interpret, does not mean that they are not of value or of agency.
Here's what I would say, right? It's important that we take care of our environment, right? Like I could agree with that. It's important that we take care of trees, because trees are valuable. They give us oxygen. They're a carbon sink, etc. I think we should take care of our rivers, because we're gonna drink from that. Just duh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Of course, there are keystone species like sharks. There are keystone species. Without sharks, like, things will go crazy in the ocean. You know what I mean? And that could affect us as well. That being said, yeah, we should take care of the ocean, but that doesn't mean the water of the ocean itself has agency. Now, the creatures within the ocean, like octopi, blue whales, killer whales, sharks, probably even some of the fishes, they may have some agency, but the ocean itself having agency is something that's extremely far fetched that I see no evidence for.
But without the ocean, could any of these aquatic mammals even exist?
Of course not.
I mean, they derive from it. So it's pre-evolutionary state.
Right. I mean, when it comes to, well, you're getting more into abiogenesis on how, like, life actually started. You see what I'm saying? And that has, you should probably talk to Dr. Blitz about that. I have no clue. You know what I mean? He'll probably have more. Yeah, probably have more information on how that all goes. You know what I mean? But as far as, these aquatic creatures, yeah, sure, they couldn't exist without the ocean. We couldn't exist without the ocean. Like, our bodies are 60% water, but I don't think that makes the ocean in of itself an agent. It's just a soluble where life came from. That might be make it special, sure, because we put specialty on it. But is it? an actual thing that we can probably speak to, I don't see the evidence of that.
Really? Like, so when we say agency, um, let me, so just so we're on the same page here, like an action or intervention, especially such as to produce a particular effect.
No, when I say agency, I mean something like you, like or something like my cats. Yeah, I mean things that have their own thoughts and actions where I can interact with it and it's gonna interact with me. Yeah, I mean like it has its own its own
Oh,
basically actions. That's what I'm talking about.
okay. So like the sense of control that you feel in your life, or your capacity to influence your own thoughts and behaviors, and have faith in your ability to handle a wide range of tasks and situations.
I guess you can explain it that way. Like for example, if we know that we know that the ocean creates tropical cyclones, right? I can't speak to the ocean and tell them send the tropical spike cyclone somewhere else. The cyclone's gonna come where it's gonna come. Like it does just doesn't work that way. That's what I mean by agency. Like if I were to tell you, like if you lived around me and I were to go you as my neighbor, I said, hey, can I borrow $5? You can say yes or no, here's $5. You know what I mean? But
Free
if I go
will.
to the ocean and say, hey, don't send the hurricane to Jamaica, send it to Mexico, that's not gonna work. It's gonna go where it's gonna go. You see what I'm saying? That's what I mean when I say agency. It can't interact with me in that way.
Oh, so kind of like free will in a sense, like their own
In a
control
sense,
of itself.
in a sense, yeah, its own will.
Okay. So I would honestly say that water has more agency than most human beings,
How?
because we may be the top species on the planet, but that we have no or little to no control over the natural sources of life, like such as the natural disasters, like hurricanes and earthquakes and volcanoes. They just We can't control or dictate them. They dictate us.
When you say they dictate us, what exactly does that mean?
It can wipe us out in any minute, and we cannot control that.
Oh yeah, sure, but that doesn't mean that they're deliberately doing that, or when I say there, I don't mean that. It doesn't mean that things like natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, that doesn't make it deliberate. You see what I'm saying? It's not like
I
the
think it
wind
is.
just decided to land in Oklahoma and unalive 15 people in the tornado.
Well, I think it is deliberate. I agree with you. Maybe it's not. It's not. I think it's like instinctual, meaning it is absolutely deliberate because it is an effect. It's affected by something that we may have been are doing, and it is deliberately responding to us deliberately.
Okay, so how do we show that to actually be true? Because
Well,
there's no
if
evidence of that yet.
I think there is. So, like, if we um, if we drill into the earth and
Hmm.
extract the oil,
Hmm.
and then we burn that oil and create carbon emissions, that causes that entrapment of the sun's rays, which then warms up the atmosphere, and it affects the way of the natural world,
Hmm.
uh, causing it to deliberately respond to our actions, and it's out of our control at that point.
But you see, the thing is, like, I agree with you with climate change, but the thing is that those effects are natural. They're not really deliberate because if it was deliberate, why wouldn't it just uh give an unambiguous sign to stop? You see what I'm saying? Because that's what animals do. And when animals, like for example, for gorillas, we know threat responses from gorillas. Like if a gorilla stands up and pounds his chest, that means back off or I'm gonna attack you. You know what I mean? Like we know that because we have the experience and we seen that with gorillas. When it comes to things like affecting the natural world, these are just responses. These are just like natural things that we see that the world does when we mess with the environment. You see, yeah, you see what I'm saying? Like, how do we distinguish that from um a natural outcome to a deliberate response? How do you distinguish that?
Well, I think those are the starting signs of worse things to come. Like if we start seeing severe thunderstorms or tornadoes or typhoons, this is a sign. This is a gorilla beating its chest, telling us that we better change what we're doing and stop abusing the planet, or there's going to be much worse things to come out of our control.
I mean, I could agree with that in a metaphorical, well, not even a medical, both in a metaphorical sense and in a literal sense, meaning that if we don't start taking care of our planet the way that we're supposed to, then we can wipe ourselves out because the natural processes on this planet, you know, warmer a warmer atmosphere means stronger hurricanes. Yes, like I do agree as far as that point. I think the point where we do have contentions is whether this is something a deliberate act, or if this is just something like a natural outcome of the world, which is just how things work. We have about 2 minutes left. Mod, you have anything else for me?
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time, and I totally understand where you're coming from. I agree. It's more of a natural. It's a natural effect from what we cause. It's almost instinctual, right? Um, it may not have like a mind of its own to be able to think beyond what is going to be naturally occurring, but I think for us to ignore its 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 life and its sentience and think of it as something that is, not important or non-consequential, it will be the ultimate fate of humanity.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I do think it's important. Yeah, I think we just disagree on sentience, but I do appreciate you being here, Mod. You have a good one. All right.
Yeah, thanks. You
No
too.
problem. All right, y'all. Keep hitting that like. I know that was a long discussion. Keep hitting that like.